Hi everyone and welcome back to a little bit of Warframe. Oh yeah, we are back. We are back and we have a couple of new toys and yeah, we are in the Steel Path. We are doing a survival. So yeah, I was like thinking about what would be the minimal investment for like something not too typical, right? I mean, you could just go with a very obvious build, right? And just be like, yeah, just farm up Korra. I realize though, Korra is a big ask for a lot of people, and that farm can be pretty harsh. I know that for myself all too well. So yeah, I do understand if people do not want to farm Korra. Octavia, obviously, very easy to... no formats at all needed for a Octavia build that just chills in Steel Path, right? So yeah, I went for Loki this time around. A, because he is very easy to farm in the star chart, right? Honestly doable very early on, which helps a lot, right? It helps a lot. The most expensive thing I think I'm using on this whole setup at the moment is the crit mod that you get in the sacrifice quest, and that's on rank 8 actually, so not even full ranked. But as you can see, the combination of the Atomos and the Guandao Prime actually doing work. And that is something that I like to see. Yeah, so why did I choose survival? It's just I do enjoy the game mode. It's not optimal to show this particular build off because you don't have loot enhancing abilities, right, on Loki, so the struggle you have is always gonna be life support. You just have to be on point, and I struggle with that a lot lately because I'm so used to just... Whoopsie! Haha, let's stay invisible. I'm so used to playing with like Korra or Octavia. Well, Octavia, you're just invis as well and you don't have to focus on combat, so that's why there is definitely an ease of use for those frames especially, right? Necros not so much. I do not enjoy Necros in the Steel Path at all, but that's mainly because Korra exists and she just basically makes everything that Necros does just better. So yeah, there's no real need to stick with Necros. Do I still play with Necros from time to time? Sure, mainly when I do stuff in a organized party, so we can stack up a Korra with a Necros or two Necroses and a Speed Nova, right? That's when I see the use. Also, you might be wondering why I am casting my decoy before I go and cast my 2. That is because of the augment, but we will talk about the builds actually, for all of these things after. I would say like we just go for 5 minutes and the Acolyte, right? That should be our baseline, just to show. I mean, you can see stuff is dying, we are doing well. Once you reach 12x multiply or combo counter, there are some red crits in there. There are very decent slash procs in there as well. And that is what we want in the Steel Path, right? We want to bypass armor or strip armor entirely, because armor is the single most painful thing in this game. Well, it's either armor or constant knockbacks in certain fights, right? That is something as well. But yeah, the playstyle really easy. You just hold down mouse 1 with the Atomos to get a couple of status effects on the enemies. Since we are using the Atomos, we are basically going for corrosive and heat to shred a little bit of armor. And I think if you go pressure point instead of condition overload on the Guandao, you have a better initial experience. Like with the Atomos, I would argue to actually go for a setup with prime pressure point instead. We need to get life support. Whew. Yeah, so I would argue going for that is actually much better than condition overload, since we are only applying 2 status effects. Well, if you get some slash procs, that's one more, but that's cutting it very close. Acolyte is dead. That was not really much of a problem, right? So yeah, we will just actually leave and talk about the builds and how I would optimize some of these things. Honestly, I think Loki doesn't need anything else. Maybe something from the helmet system would be very nice. Hey, another primary dexterity. Sweet. Good stuff. Good stuff. I also really enjoy that the acolytes always drop 2 steel essence now, which is honestly, it makes it a little bit easier. And for the new arcanes, yeah, I need to farm a couple of them up. That's okay though. So, let's talk quickly about Loki and the build I am using. Obviously corrosive projection, it helps so much. Since we are armor stripping though, with the upgrades we will be doing, you could argue for steel charge, maybe, but since he has a dash polarity, honestly, which auras do we have with the dash? Energy siphon for sure, right? Yes, so that would be something to use. Not too bad. If you go against Corpus, probably shield disruption. But yeah, this is like really an okay setup, and that gives us the 74 points. Now, as I said, you could invest the Forma into this, no problem. For Prime Flow, for example, that would be the obvious one, and we will talk about why we are using Primed Flow here. Basically, I just want to have I always want to have access to my oh shit panic button, which is our decoy. We are using Savior Decoy, so if we take fatal damage and the decoy is up, we will switch teleport with the decoy, and we don't die, but the decoy dies, right? So that's your oh shit button, and that's why you see me cast this a lot before my 2 runs out and I have to recast it. Natural Talent helps with going invis faster, 50% cast speed. That is a no-brainer, right? We are using Streamline for some efficiency. Our 2 cost 35, that's okay. Our 1 17.5, perfect. We have a very small, oh shit, there's a bombard or napalm inside, right in front of me, and my invis is about to run out, so we could, for a very small range of 6.8 meters, disarm those guys, but I do not recommend this. So I guess if I finally will unlock the helmet system, I would get rid of his 3 and just see what I can do with that. But other than that, we are using narrow-minded, primed continuity, as well as augur message to get as much duration as we can out of this. 278%, pretty nice. If we do get a Forma onto this, you'll free up 7 points, which is not quite enough for not Cunning Drift. What am I searching for? There is a good mod. Well, you could go for Aviator actually. Not too bad of a deal. Power Drift, we don't need power, right? We could go for Cunning Drift basically just to pump our 4 a little bit, but that's a no Forma Loki build with the augment. If you compare this to just pure duration, 36.72, and here we have 33.36. That's not that much of a downgrade to our duration, right? And we gain the the Savior Decoy safety net. Obviously, I was only going for like 5 minutes there, but I've been in that mission for way longer with this exact build, right? I'm using Arcane Deflection and Arcane Resistance. I need to farm up a couple of these guys here because I want to get immune to Toxin procs if you go against Infested. But we have the immunity against Slash procs, and that is basically something that's really, really good because those things kill you very fast even if you are Invis, right? And I'm using a Vitality one from the top. So why do I do that? I didn't have space for the fully leveled one, and I wanted to make sure I have a good amount of health, or like a good amount of EHP on Loki. Still pretty squishy, right? You don't have a lot of armor. So yeah, it is a bit squishy, but that lets us survive those toxin procs or just react fast enough to go into operator mode, right? So that's the build for Loki. I didn't use the Guandao Prime, there's no need in showing this one off because that's not really useful in Steel Path. I was just testing around with it, so don't worry about this. The Atomos, now I do have in fact a Forma installed on this, but if you drop Sure Shot, you still have the build ready to go, right? The only thing that you gain is a bit more status chance, which it just makes it easier to apply the status, but don't worry if you don't have this. We basically go just... Honestly, you don't even need Hornet Strike. Do you know what? We will just completely rework this on the fly, because that will help us so much. I didn't even think about it. Now even Seeker would go onto this, which gives us punch through. That seems like a good setup to me, but Barrel Diffusion and Lethal Torrent for the multi-shot and as well a little bit of fire rate. Jolt Pistol Pestilence for corrosive, Scorch for heat, Sure Shot for more status chance. If you don't go for like this one, we could also go for Stunning Speed. Actually a decent mod, honestly. I think I will throw this on instead. That brings us to 84 status. That's pretty decent. I think that's fair. Yeah, we don't have the punch through, but it will just chain to other enemies anyways, because it is the Atomos. But yeah, I mean, even with that, there we go. You do not need any Forma to get this build ready, which is good. Which is very, very good. So yeah, that is quite enjoyable. And that's just our primer, right? We do not care about anything damage-wise. All we care is getting those corrosive and those heat procs on our enemies to get more damage out of our Guandao Prime. So I am using Condition Overload in this build, but be aware I was using a different primer for this, and I forgot to switch this back to Primed Pressure Point. But as you can see, if you use this with Prime Pressure Point, I think you'll be fine. I think you deal a bit more damage even, until the slash procs are in effect. So yeah, all you want basically is Prime Pressure Point, as I said. You definitely want Drifting Contact and Blood Rush. Now, Drifting Contact, you can achieve combo duration with other things, but I think this is very achievable. It's a Nightmare mod from Tier 2 Nightmare missions, and those are very easily done. So yeah, very achievable setup. After that, we went for Berserker Fury. Now, I do quite enjoy this mod. You do not have to use this. You could instead go for Gladiator Vice if you have it, actually. That's just 30% attack speed instead of the 70%. But you gain a little bit of crit chance per combo multi back that we lost from the Blood Rush nerf, right? So it's up to you. It really is, but I would say if you have Gladiator Vice, that is not drifting. Berserker. If you have Gladiator Vice and you do not have Berserker Fury, definitely go for this one instead. Quickening is another one that you could use if you really need something. It helps as well, right? You have the combo count chance and 40% attack speed if you do not have Berserker. So that would be very nice. or as I said, gladiator-wise for the additional crit chance for the combo. Since we are using Blood Rush, we definitely want Organ Shatter for crit damage. We are also using Sacrificial Steel here on rank 8, so even if I fully max this one out, I still will be able to use this build. If I go back to Condition Overload, I will have to invest 1 Forma, which is not much, right? And for the last slot, there is an argument to be made that you just could go for boss kill. Right, that works very fine. I did run this a good amount of time. The one thing that you will lose is status chance, of course, that's why I'm using Cornus Mandible. It's 30% less slash added, right? But you gain a good amount of status chance, which helps proccing those slash procs. Weeping Wounds, status chance per combo multi, so this is the status equivalent to Blood Rush. That really helps building up those slash procs as well. I mean, it just works very, very fine. Yeah, so depending on what you are doing, if you are running with this like Atomos setup, go for Prime Pressure Point. You will deal more damage this way. If you, however, are using something like a Kuva Nucor with innate magnetic damage and added corrosive radiation and heat on it, yeah, you then will see that Condition Overload is much better. So yeah, that's what I was running before, and then I was like, okay, I really want to see if the Atomos works, and it does. It does really work. Sure, it's not that amount of damage that we will be dealing with a Kuva Nucor, but that's okay, right? So, that was a lot of talking about the builds. What I've been doing is obviously acquiring a Kuva Nucor. I went through the process of Lich hunting and just spammed, not killed the larvalings until he had a Kuva Nucor with magnetic. So I was just using Mesa to spawn that guy in. And then I went through the whole process. They shortened the time, which is good. The grind isn't as long as it used to be, which is welcomed. I think that's a good thing. And yeah, so something that I forgot to mention. This one is alarming, and it doesn't break Loki stealth. It will break other stealth, though. I think on Ivara this doesn't work, which is why you might caught that in the Kuva Nucor. I'm using Suppress just to be sure. So yeah, that is something to keep an eye on. Honestly, Guandao Prime, I'm so glad how this came out, and honestly, it has the perfect polarities for this exact build, right? There will be a Forma invested soon into this. Basically, I need to get Amalgam, Organ Shatter, and max out Sacrificial Steel, right? Just to get it going. But yeah, I mean, this is really just taking the meta and slowing it down and see what you need. So what do you actually need to get to this? You need to be Mastery rank 5, because that's where the Atomos is locked. If you do not have the Guandao Prime, which is Mastery rank, is it 10 or 12? I can't remember actually. You could go for the normal Guandao, which I have been using a very long time, right? The thing is, you have, if you take the comparison, you lose a bit of crit chance. That's not too bad, but you lose a lot of status chance. So that's why this is like, maybe not. Maybe you're just honestly better off farming the Guandao Prime. It was not too bad to get it, but also you could use something like a Saw. This one is more leaning to crit than to status, but like the old Saws I had were pretty much all crit and status hybrids. That's the very old one. This one was 2514, so... Oh no, would you look at that? I messed up on the Saws. I always went for crit. But yeah, having the nice spread of actually crit and status works really well with Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds, as I said, that accelerates what you're doing. And yeah, so I was farming the steel path for quite a while, and the reason for that is for the gun arcanes. So I have accumulated a little bit of stuff, just a tad bit. There's really, I need to go deeper into that. But here as well, as you can see, a couple of them are acquired. We can definitely upgrade a secondary Merciless to rank 2, which is nice. So yeah, those look very good, as well as the galvanized mods. So I went ahead and farmed arbitrations for a little bit, just to get a couple of those galvanized mods on here. They're on rank 8 for the most part. The shotgun ones I haven't leveled at all, but these are insanely good. They are strict upgrades to the normal multi-shot mods until, or just almost always, there's just certain scenarios where you will be using the old ones, but only for like bosses that you don't kill ads on the way, right? Yeah, so that is pretty much it. That's all what I wanted to talk about. Just you can go into Steel Path with no Forma invested. All you need is shown here: a Loki, an Atomos, a melee that has decent crit and decent status, and you are fairly good to go. Yeah, so that was enjoyable. Normally for Steel Path, as I said, I'm using Korra, and that is a lot easier, especially in survival. You can stay in there for however long you want, right? Yeah, but that was just to show off that I finally made my peace a little bit with Steel Path, and I am going through the whole start chart again, doing arbitrations because I need a lot of endo. And I have a lot of catching up to do in the open world. Well, only on Deimos, but that is a grind that I will tackle another day. For today, we are definitely done. So thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in Steel Path, and as always, take care. Bye.